中方愿意同其他成员国一道。
China is willing to work with other member countries to strengthen BRICS cooperation and improve the quality of the BRICS mechanism to benefit the 5 countries and the world.
Amid global challenges, leaders from BRICS member countries gather in China to enhance cooperation on a range of issues. Hello, I'm John Terrett, sitting in for Anand Naidoo, and this is The Heat. The BRICS nations account for nearly a quarter of the world economy and more than half of last year's economic growth. In short, they are a crucial engine of economic growth for the entire world. So when the leaders of China, Russia, India, Brazil and South Africa gather in Xiamen, China for their 9th summit this weekend, the focus will be on strengthening ties and forging new partnerships on major global and regional issues. For more on what to expect from the summit, we turn to the person who normally occupies this chair, Anand Naidoo, who is in Xiamen. Anand.
Thanks, John. That summit, of course, will get underway in just over 24 hours from now. Well, joining us here in the studio is CGTN correspondent Zou Yun to give us an idea of what we can expect. Yun, China, of course, is the rotating president of the BRICS group right now. It's also the host country for this summit.
Yep.
So how do you think the country will use that as an opportunity to drive its vision of where it wants to see BRICS going?
Well, I think China has always been the pioneer in this group community for its efforts in making the consolidation in policy coordination, and also it has been making great endeavors to make some new proposals. And I think now the BRICS community is actually becoming the engine, the global growth engine. And we've been talking about its members for days now. You know, it represents over 40% of the global population, takes up 20% of the global GDP, and also contributed over half of the global growth. So now it has already become the global growth engine, and I think that trend can continue with the efforts by all the member countries. And this is the first thing. And the other direction I think now is heading is that now we're seeing more cooperation in new areas, because we know that the BRICS started at the beginning, it's an economic concept. So that's why at the beginning we saw the cooperation mainly happens in trade, in infrastructure building, and also in economic areas. But now gradually it evolves into the politics and also security. But I don't know whether you have noticed that starting from recent years, we've been seeing there more cooperation that is happening in people-to-people exchange and also cultural exchanges. Especially like this year, we have the movie festival. We have meetings not only happening the Minister of Commerce or Minister of Foreign Affairs, it's also the meeting between the most top leaders from the media. So, and also last year, all the member countries, they produced a movie together. So we are seeing all those exciting news that is happening in different front of cooperation. And more importantly, now the BRICS member countries, they are not making voices by itself individually.
Right.
Because as Chinese president, she said that the 5 members are like, a hand or the fingers of the hand, and each of them has their own strengths. And when we come together as a feast, it could come stronger and more powerful. That's why in the G20 summit happens this year, for the very first time in history, the BRICS countries, they made a communique together to express their support for implementation of the Paris Agreement.
Okay.
So I think this is the way that, or the direction that the BRICS is heading to.
So we have the leaders of the 5 BRICS countries who will be here, but China has also invited the leaders of 5 other countries, the so-called 5+5 concept.
Exactly.
It's led to BRICS being branded, this summit being branded BRICS Plus. What's behind that?
Actually, first of all, we have to see the uniqueness about this BRICS Plus, because it is actually a tradition for the host country to invite some non-member countries to the summit. But this is for the very first time for the host country to invite those countries from a territory that's beyond its own, either Mexico or Egypt. So it's all, or we can say the footprint has been spread to other landscapes. So it's influence and its partnership has become much more wider. I think this is crucial for the BRICS countries now, because the impact impact of the BRICS countries now goes beyond its own or those community. It's making global impact. That's why we need to invite more friends to expand its circle of friends to this community. And even though they have different problems, they face different like challenges, but when those leaders sit down, they can figure it out, like how they can exchange ideas, how they can share the solution for the problems that either they have been faced or they might be countering in the future. So I think this is a great platform for either China or the BRICS community to expand their circle of friends and also influence worldwide.
What do you make of the fact that Xiamen was chosen as the host city? Of course, a meeting of this kind, with all those leaders coming here, brings enormous prestige to a city.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
This is a beautiful city. I mean, look at the setting that we're sitting in right now.
Agree.
What do you make of Xiamen being chosen?
Well, I think maybe one of the best answers is just to take a look at the island that is behind us and the Gulanyu, right? I heard you've been there a couple of days ago. So it's a perfect place for cultural exchanges and for the coexistence of different culture. Take a look at the island. It's tiny. You went there. It's only like 2 square kilometers. But on that island, it has 600 pianos and it has over 900 historic buildings well preserved from the colonial era. So I think it's a perfect example of where East meets the West, where the history meets the present. I think that's also the key idea or the key spirit that we want to convey here in the BRICS community, because we have differences. It's found those 5 member countries, we have fundamental differences, like politics, economic system, or culture, but we respect those differences and we address the differences, but we let those remain and exist. But at the same time, we have the openness, we have the exclusiveness, and also we advocate the win-win cooperation. So I think this is a perfect example. That's why it's held here in Xiamen, the kind of spirit that we want to convey here.
Yeah, it's a great mixture of the old and new.
Exactly.
Zou Yun, thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you, Anand, for having me.
And John, it's back to you.